Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today, we're diving into the life of arguably the most polarizing and revolutionary entrepreneur of our generation, a man who's simultaneously building rockets to Mars, revolutionizing the car industry, implanting chips in human brains, and reshaping social media. We're talking about Elon Musk, the billionaire who went from being bullied as a kid in South Africa to becoming the richest person on Earth. This isn't just another success story. This is a tale of extreme highs and devastating lows, of companies brought back from the brink of bankruptcy, of public meltdowns and triumphant comebacks, of divorces, controversies, and world-changing innovations. From sleeping on factory floors to launching cars into space, from nearly losing everything in 2008 to acquiring Twitter for $44 billion, Elon Musk's story is absolutely wild. If you're interested in entrepreneurship, technology, space exploration, or just want to understand one of the most influential and controversial figures shaping our future, this video is for you. We're covering everything: the childhood trauma, the dot-com millions, the near death of Tesla and SpaceX, and where he stands today in 2025. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're building a community of people who want to understand the stories behind the headlines. Now, let's get into the incredible, unbelievable life of Elon Musk. Elon Musk, the complete life story. The South African childhood Elon Reeve Musk was born on June 28, 1971, in Pretoria, South Africa, during the height of the apartheid era. His mother, May Musk, was a Canadian-born model and dietitian who had moved to South Africa. His father, Errol Musk, was a South African electromechanical engineer, pilot, and property developer. From the outside, the Musk family appeared privileged, but young Elon's childhood was marked by complexity, isolation, and experiences that would fundamentally shape his worldview. Elon was an unusual child from the start. He was deeply introverted, often lost in his own thoughts to such a degree that his parents had his hearing tested, concerned that he might be deaf. The reality was that Elon was simply so absorbed in his internal world that external stimuli often failed to register. This intense focus would become one of his defining characteristics, but as a child, it made him seem strange to his peers. His parents' marriage was troubled, and they divorced when Elon was around 8 years old. In what he would later describe as one of his life's biggest mistakes, young Elon chose to live with his father. Elon has been remarkably reticent about the details of his relationship with Errol, but in interviews, he has described his father as a terrible human being and has said that almost every evil thing you could possibly think of, he has done. The specific nature of these issues has never been fully disclosed, but it's clear that Elon's childhood home life was far from ideal. School provided little refuge. Elon was small for his age, socially awkward, and intellectually far ahead of his classmates, a combination that made him a prime target for bullies. The bullying was severe and violent. In one incident, a group of boys threw him down a flight of stairs and then beat him until he lost consciousness. He was hospitalized with injuries so severe that he had difficulty breathing properly for years afterward. These experiences left deep psychological scars, contributing to what Musk has described as a difficult and often lonely childhood. Books became Elon's escape and his education. He was a voracious reader, reportedly consuming the entire Encyclopedia Britannica by age 9. He read science fiction voraciously, with works by Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein particularly influential in shaping his worldview. These books didn't just entertain him, they gave him a framework for thinking about humanity's future and his potential role in shaping it. The idea that humanity needed to become a spacefaring civilization took root during these formative years. By age 10, Elon had discovered computers, and they became his obsession. He taught himself programming using a manual that came with the Commodore VIC-20 computer his father purchased. Manual suggested the learning process would take 6 months. Elon completed it in 3 days during a marathon coding session. At 12, he created and sold his first piece of software, a space-themed game called Blaster, to a computer magazine for approximately $500. This early success planted the seed that he could create things people valued. The Great Escape. Canada and America. As Elon approached adulthood, he became increasingly determined to leave South Africa. The country's apartheid system troubled him morally, and he wanted to avoid the mandatory military service that would have required him to enforce apartheid policies. Beyond these immediate concerns, he recognized that the opportunities he sought existed primarily in America, the land of innovation and entrepreneurship. Elon's path to America went through Canada. Through his Canadian-born mother, he was eligible for Canadian citizenship. At 17, without telling his father, Elon left South Africa for Canada with almost no money and only distant relatives' addresses. He arrived in Montreal in 1989 with little more than hope and determination. His first year in Canada was characterized by hardship and hustle. He worked odd jobs, including cleaning out the boiler room of a lumber mill, shoveling grain silos, and cutting logs. These weren't glamorous positions, but they taught him about hard work and gave him appreciation for those who performed difficult manual labor. He has credited these experiences with giving him perspective on the realities of working-class life. After reconnecting with family members and spending time traveling across Canada, Elon enrolled at Queen's University in Ontario in 1989. The university years marked an important transition. He began coming out of his shell socially, though he remained intensely focused on his studies and his ambitions. It was at Queen's that he met Justine Wilson, who would later become his first wife. In 1992, after 2 years at Queen's, Elon transferred to the University of Pennsylvania on a scholarship. This move brought him to the United States, a crucial step toward his ultimate goals. At Penn, he pursued a dual degree in economics from the Wharton School and physics from the College of Arts and Sciences. This unusual combination reflected his interest in understanding both how businesses work and how the physical world operates, knowledge that would prove essential in his future ventures. During his time at Penn, Elon and a roommate rented a large house and turned it into an unofficial nightclub on weekends to make extra money. While his roommate managed the social aspects, Elon focused on the business logistics. Even in this relatively trivial venture, his entrepreneurial instincts were apparent. He graduated from Penn in 1995 with his 2 bachelor's degrees, ready for the next phase of his journey. The internet gold rush, Zip2 and XCOM. After graduating, Elon was accepted into a PhD program in energy physics at Stanford University. However, he lasted only 2 days before dropping out. The year was 1995, and the internet was exploding. Elon recognized that the internet revolution was a rare historical moment, comparable to the gold rush, and he wanted to be part of it. Staying in an academic program while this transformation happened felt like a massive opportunity cost. With his brother Kimball, Elon founded Zip2, a company that provided online city guides and maps for newspapers. The concept was straightforward: help newspapers create online versions of the Yellow Pages with maps and directions. This was before Google Maps, before widespread GPS, and the idea of having searchable, mappable business listings online was genuinely innovative. The early days of Zip2 were grueling. Elon and Kimball couldn't afford an apartment, so they slept in the office and showered at the local YMCA. Elon coded during the night and did sales calls during the day, essentially doing the work of multiple people simultaneously. He has described this period as challenging, but also exhilarating. He was building something real, and every day brought tangible progress. However, running Zip2 also taught Elon painful lessons about startups and venture capital. As the company grew and took on outside investors, Elon found himself progressively sidelined from decision-making. The board brought in experienced executives to run the company, and Elon, despite being the founder and the person who had built the technology, was not made CEO. This experience taught him a crucial lesson: maintaining control of your company's matters. In 1999, Compaq acquired Zip2 for approximately $307 million. Elon's share was $22 million. At 27 years old, he had achieved financial success beyond most people's wildest dreams. Many people would have retired or lived comfortably off this windfall. Elon immediately started planning his next venture. With $10 million of his Zip2 proceeds, Elon founded XCOM in 1999, an online financial services and payment company. His vision was revolutionary for its time, creating a full-service online bank that would handle checking, savings, brokerage, and more, all in one digital platform. The idea was ahead of its time, and the execution faced numerous regulatory and technical challenges. XCOM entered a competitive environment. Another company, Confinity, had been founded around the same time by Peter Thiel, Max Levchin, and others. Confinity had developed a product called PayPal, which allowed users to beam money between Palm Pilots and, more importantly, send money via email. The two companies were fierce competitors until they merged in 2000, with Elon as the largest shareholder and CEO of the combined entity, which kept the XCOM name initially. The merged company was turbulent. There were deep disagreements about technology platforms, with Elon favoring Microsoft-based solutions, while the Confinity team preferred Unix Linux. There were strategic disagreements about product direction. Company culture clashed. The situation came to a head in September 2000 when, while Elon and Justine were on their honeymoon, the board executed what amounts to a coup, replacing Elon as CEO with Peter Thiel. This was a devastating blow to Elon's ego and ambitions. He remained the largest shareholder and on the board, but he was no longer running the company he had founded. The company was renamed PayPal, and under Thiel's leadership, it focused on the person-to-person payment system that would become its signature product. In 2002, eBay acquired PayPal for $1.5 billion. Elon's stake was worth approximately $165 million after taxes. At 31 years old, he had made two fortunes. Most people would have been satisfied. Elon was just getting started on what he really wanted to do. The impossible dream. SpaceX, even before the PayPal acquisition closed, Elon was thinking about his next move. And it was audacious. He wanted to start a rocket company. This wasn't just ambitious, it was potentially insane. The aerospace industry was dominated by massive defense contractors and government agencies. Multiple billionaires had tried and failed to create private space companies. The barriers to entry were astronomical literally and figuratively. Elon's interest in space wasn't new. Since childhood, he had been fascinated by space exploration and concerned that humanity's progress toward becoming a spacefaring civilization had stalled after the Apollo program. He believed that making life multiplanetary was essential for humanity's long-term survival, and that someone needed to take action to make this happen. Initially, Elon's space ambitions were more modest. In 2001, he conceived of a project called Mars Oasis, which would send a small greenhouse to Mars to grow plants, hopefully rekindling public interest in space exploration and leading to increased NASA funding. He traveled to Russia multiple times to try to purchase refurbished ICBMs that could be used to launch the mission. The Russian meetings were disasters. The Russians didn't take the young internet millionaire seriously, quoted him absurdly high prices, and in one memorable incident, allegedly spat at him. On the flight back from the final failed Russian meeting, Elon did calculations on his laptop. He realized that the raw materials cost of a rocket was only about 2% of the typical selling price. Most of the cost came from inefficient production, complex supply chains, and lack of reusability. In that moment, the idea for SpaceX crystallized. He wouldn't buy rockets, he would build them more efficiently. Space Exploration Technologies Corp., SpaceX, was founded in June 2002 with a stated goal of reducing space transportation costs and enabling the colonization of Mars. Elon invested $100 million of his own money into the company, nearly two-thirds of his liquid wealth at the time. He became CEO and chief engineer, applying the lessons from XCOM about maintaining control. The early years of SpaceX were characterized by a steep learning curve and repeated failures. Elon hired engineers from major aerospace companies, but he also brought in talented people from non-aerospace backgrounds, believing that fresh perspectives unburdened by industry assumptions could lead to innovations. The company set up operations on Omelek Island in the Marshall Islands to test and launch their Falcon 1 rocket. The first Falcon 1 launch in March 2006 failed spectacularly, with the rocket exploding shortly after liftoff due to a fuel line leak. The second attempt in March 2007 also failed when the rocket began spinning out of control and had to be destroyed. The third attempt in August 2008 suffered a stage separation problem and failed to reach orbit. 3 failures, hundreds of millions of dollars burned. The company was running out of money, and Elon was simultaneously facing catastrophic problems at Tesla. Their Falcon 1 launch in September 2008 succeeded, making SpaceX the first privately funded company to successfully launch a liquid-fueled rocket into orbit. The relief and jubilation at SpaceX headquarters were palpable. If this launch had failed, SpaceX would likely have gone bankrupt. The success came just in time. Shortly after this success, NASA awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion commercial resupply services contract to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. This contract provided the financial runway for SpaceX to continue developing its technology and validating Elon's belief that private companies could successfully operate in space. The Tesla gambit while starting SpaceX, Elon became involved with another audacious venture, electric cars. Tesla Motors, later Tesla Inc., was founded in 2003 by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. Elon led the Series A funding round in 2004, investing $6.5 million and becoming chairman of the board. He was deeply involved in the company's direction from the start, though he was not yet CEO. The original Tesla Roadster, based on a Lotus Elise chassis but powered by an electric drivetrain, was designed to prove that electric cars could be desirable, high-performance vehicles rather than the slow, unappealing compliance cars that automakers had previously produced. The strategy was to start with an expensive, low-volume sports car, then use the profits and technology to develop more affordable vehicles, a strategy Musk dubbed the secret master plan. However, Tesla's early years were chaotic. The Roadster development faced massive technical challenges and cost overruns. The relationship between Eberhard and Musk deteriorated, with disputes over the company's direction, financial management, and who deserved credit for what. In 2007, the board removed Eberhard as CEO, replacing him with Michael Marks temporarily, and then Zev Drury. In 2008, amidst a financial crisis that nearly killed the company, Musk took over as CEO himself. The 2008-2009 period was the darkest in Elon's business career. SpaceX had suffered 3 launch failures and was nearly bankrupt. Tesla was hemorrhaging money, had massive production problems, and the global financial crisis had frozen credit markets, making it nearly impossible to raise capital. Elon was going through a painful divorce from his first wife, Justine. He was sleeping on friends' couches, borrowing money for rent, and facing the real possibility that everything he had built would collapse. Elon was forced to make an agonizing choice. He had limited remaining funds and could fully fund either SpaceX or Tesla, but not both. If he split the money, both companies would likely die. If he chose one, at least something might survive. Unable to choose between his children, he decided to split his remaining money and let fate decide. He has described this as one of the most emotionally difficult periods of his life. Both companies survived by the narrowest of margins. SpaceX secured the NASA contract after the successful 4th Falcon 1 launch. Tesla secured critical financing on Christmas Eve 2008, with Musk investing his last available funds and other investors coming through at the last possible moment. Both companies had been hours or days from bankruptcy. The resurrection and rise of Tesla having survived near death, Tesla began its ascent. The Roadster, despite its production challenges, proved the market existed for high-performance electric vehicles. However, the company's future depended on successfully developing and manufacturing a mass-market vehicle, the Model S sedan. The Model S development stretched Tesla's capabilities to their limits. The company decided to build its own manufacturing facility rather than contracting production, purchasing a former Toyota-GM joint venture plant in Fremont, California. This decision gave Tesla control over its production process, but also required massive capital investment and exposed the company to all the challenges of large-scale automotive manufacturing. The Model S launched in 2012 to widespread critical acclaim. Motor Trend named it Car of the Year. Consumer Reports gave it their highest rating ever. The vehicle proved that electric cars could be superior to gasoline cars in multiple dimensions: performance, safety, technology, and when considering total ownership costs, even economics. The Model S wasn't just a good electric car, it was one of the best cars, period. However, Tesla's battles were far from over. The company faced opposition from auto dealer associations, which lobbied state governments to ban Tesla's direct sales model. It faced skepticism from automotive analysts who doubted electric vehicles would ever gain mainstream acceptance. It faced production challenges as it scaled up manufacturing, and it faced constant questions about its financial viability, with critics pointing to its consistent losses and need to raise capital repeatedly. The Model X SUV, launched in 2015, was simultaneously a technical marvel and a cautionary tale. Its falcon-wing doors were engineering showpieces, but created massive production complications. The vehicle's complexity led to delays and quality issues. Musk later admitted that the Model X had too many new features and unnecessary complexity, a lesson about trying to do too much at once. The crucial vehicle for Tesla's future was the Model 3, a more affordable sedan aimed at the mass market. Announced in 2016, with deliveries beginning in 2017, the Model 3 generated extraordinary demand, with hundreds of thousands of people placing deposits. However, actually manufacturing the vehicles at scale proved to be what Musk called production hell. Throughout 2017 and 2018, Tesla struggled desperately to increase Model 3 production. The company had set ambitious targets and repeatedly missed them. Musk essentially moved into the factory, sleeping on the production floor and working nearly around the clock to solve problems. Videos from this period show an exhausted, increasingly erratic Musk, clearly under extraordinary stress. The pressures manifested in various ways. Musk got into Twitter controversies, including an infamous incident where he called a British diver who helped rescue children from a Thai cave a pedo guy, leading to a defamation lawsuit, which Musk ultimately won. In another incident, he tweeted that he had funding secured to take Tesla private at $420 per share, a statement that turned out to be premature at best. The SEC charged him with securities fraud, leading to a settlement that cost him his chairman position, imposed oversight of his communications, and levied significant fines. Despite these challenges, Tesla eventually solved its production problems. By late 2018, the company was producing Model 3s at a rate of 5,000 per week and achieved its first sustainably profitable quarters. The company's financial situation stabilized, and its stock price began a rise that would become one of the most spectacular gains in market history. SpaceX, reusability and Starship. While Tesla dominated headlines, SpaceX continued advancing with less public drama but equally impressive technical achievements. The company's central innovation was making rockets reusable, something that had been attempted before but never successfully implemented at scale. The Falcon 9, SpaceX's workhorse rocket, was designed from the start with reusability in mind. However, successfully landing a rocket booster after it had launched a payload to space proved extraordinarily difficult. The company experienced multiple failures, with rockets exploding on landing barges in the Atlantic Ocean. Each failure was analyzed, and the design was iterated. In December 2015, SpaceX successfully landed a Falcon 9 first-stage booster for the first time, bringing it down vertically at Cape Canaveral. The achievement marked a watershed moment in spaceflight. In April 2016, SpaceX successfully landed a booster on an autonomous drone ship in the ocean, an even more difficult feat. These landings, which look like something from science fiction with the rocket descending on a pillar of fire, have become routine, with SpaceX now landing and reusing boosters dozens of times. Reusability transformed the economics of spaceflight. By recovering and refurbishing rockets rather than throwing them away after each use, SpaceX dramatically reduced launch costs. The company began dominating the commercial launch market, undercutting competitors on price while maintaining a high launch cadence. SpaceX became the most valuable private company in the world. The company achieved numerous other milestones. In 2012, Dragon became the first commercial spacecraft to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. In 2020, SpaceX launched NASA astronauts to the ISS on the Crew Dragon spacecraft, making it the first private company to send humans to orbit and returning America's ability to launch astronauts from US soil after nearly a decade of dependence on Russian Soyuz spacecraft. SpaceX also developed the Falcon Heavy, essentially three Falcon 9 rockets strapped together, creating the most powerful operational rocket in the world. The test flight in February 2018 captured global attention by launching Elon's personal Tesla Roadster into space with a mannequin named Starman in the driver's seat, playing David Bowie's Space Oddity on repeat. The stunt was simultaneously silly and inspiring, exemplifying Musk's flair for spectacle. But SpaceX's ultimate goal has always been Mars, and that requires a far more capable rocket. Enter Starship, a fully reusable super heavy lift launch vehicle that SpaceX has been developing at its Boca Chica, Texas facility, renamed Starbase. Starship is designed to carry both crew and cargo to Mars, with the capacity to transport 100 people per flight. Starship development has followed SpaceX's characteristic approach: build quickly, test, expect failures, learn, and iterate. Multiple early prototypes exploded during testing, leading to spectacular fireworks. But with each failure, the engineering team learned and improved the design. The testing philosophy represents a fundamental difference from traditional aerospace development, which favors extensive ground testing and simulation before flight tests. SpaceX's approach is faster and, despite the visible explosions, arguably less expensive overall. The Neuralink and Boring Company side quests as if running SpaceX and Tesla weren't enough. Elon founded two additional companies in 2016, Neuralink and the Boring Company. These ventures reflect his tendency to identify problems he thinks are important and then create companies to address them, regardless of whether he has bandwidth or relevant expertise. Neuralink was founded to develop brain-computer interfaces. Elon's stated concern is that as artificial intelligence becomes more powerful, humans need a way to augment their own intelligence to avoid becoming obsolete. Neuralink's technology involves implanting tiny electrodes into the brain that can read neural signals and potentially stimulate neurons, creating a direct interface between the brain and computers. The company has made significant progress, demonstrating its technology in animals, including a famous demonstration where a monkey played Pong using only its mind. In 2024, Neuralink received FDA approval for human trials and successfully implanted its device in its first human patients. The initial application focuses on helping people with paralysis control computers and other devices, but Elon's long-term vision involves much broader cognitive enhancement. The Boring Company emerged from Elon's frustration with Los Angeles traffic. Stuck in congestion one day, he tweeted that he was going to build a tunnel boring machine and start digging. What seemed like a joke became reality. The Boring Company's goal is to create underground transportation systems that can alleviate surface traffic congestion. The company has completed several demonstration projects, including a tunnel system under the Las Vegas Convention Center that transports people in Tesla vehicles. Critics have pointed out that these tunnels are essentially underground roads, not the revolutionary transportation systems Elon sometimes describes. The company's grander visions of high-speed pod transport systems remain largely unrealized. Nevertheless, the Boring Company has developed innovations in tunnel boring technology that reduce costs and increase speed compared to traditional methods. Both companies reflect Elon's approach to entrepreneurship: identify a problem, disregard conventional wisdom about why the problem is too hard or too expensive to solve, and apply first principles thinking to find new approaches. Sometimes this leads to breakthroughs. Sometimes it leads to overpromises that take years longer to fulfill than initially claimed. The Twitter takeover in early 2022, Elon began purchasing Twitter stock, eventually accumulating a 9.2% stake. He was initially offered and accepted a board seat, but then reversed course and instead made an unsolicited offer to purchase the entire company for approximately $44 billion. Elon's stated motivation was his belief that Twitter was failing in its potential to be a true digital town square where free speech could flourish. He was critical of the company's content moderation policies, which he believed were biased and overly restrictive. He promised to make Twitter more open, transparent, and respectful of free speech principles. The acquisition process became a public soap opera. After making the offer, Elon tried to back out, claiming Twitter had misrepresented the number of bot accounts on the platform. Twitter sued to force the deal to close. Elon countersued. Legal experts largely believed Twitter would prevail. Eventually, shortly before the trial was set to begin, Elon proceeded with the acquisition at the original price, completing the deal in October 2022. What followed was one of the most chaotic corporate takeovers in recent history. Elon immediately fired Twitter's CEO, CFO, and other top executives. Over the following weeks, he laid off approximately half of Twitter's staff, with the cuts appearing haphazard and leading to the loss of critical institutional knowledge. Many additional employees resigned in protest of Elon's policies or after he issued an ultimatum demanding hardcore commitment. Elon made rapid, significant changes to the platform. He reformed the verification system, replacing the previous system where blue checkmarks indicated verified identity with a paid subscription service called Twitter Blue. He loosened content moderation policies and reinstated many previously banned accounts, including former President Donald Trump's account. He rebranded the entire platform as X, attempting to transform it from a social media site into an everything app. The changes were extraordinarily controversial. Advertisers fled the platform, concerned about brand safety and Elon's erratic leadership. The platform experienced technical issues as its reduced staff struggled to maintain the service. Elon's own tweets became increasingly political and divisive, alienating users across the political spectrum at various times. Twitter's, or rather X's, valuation plummeted, with some estimates suggesting it lost more than half its value under Elon's ownership. Supporters argued that Elon was breaking Twitter's previous culture of censorship and making the platform more open. Critics contended that he was allowing harassment and misinformation to flourish while driving away users and advertisers. The reality was complex, with both positive and negative changes occurring simultaneously. What was undeniable was that the acquisition consumed enormous amounts of Elon's time and attention, raising questions about his ability to effectively manage his other responsibilities. The personal life behind the headlines throughout his public achievements, Elon's personal life has been tumultuous and often tragic. His first marriage to Justine Wilson lasted 8 years and produced 6 children, though their first son, Nevada, died at 10 weeks old from sudden infant death syndrome, a loss that deeply affected both parents. They had twins and triplets through IVF. The marriage ended in divorce in 2008 amid the stress of Elon's companies nearly failing. Elon married actress Tallulah Riley twice, first from 2010 to 2012, then again from 2013 to 2016. The on-again, off-again relationship suggested deep connection alongside incompatibility. Elon has described himself as someone who struggles to be alone and who doesn't do well without a long-term partner. His relationship with Canadian musician Grimes, Claire Boucher, began in 2018 and became one of his most public relationships. They had 3 children together, Ex-Eroman 12, pronounced Ex-Ash-A-12, Exad Dark Cider Ale, and Techno Mechanicus. The unusual names became media fodder, reflecting Elon's unconventional approach to life, extending even to his children's identities. The relationship with Grimes has been on and off, with periods of separation followed by reconciliation. In 2022, it emerged that Elon had also fathered twins with Siobhan Zilis, an executive at Neuralink, making him the father of 11 known living children with 3 different women. This revelation sparked discussions about Elon's stated concern about declining birth rates and his belief that highly intelligent people have a duty to have children. Elon's approach to parenting is unconventional. He is reportedly involved with his children but also famously works extreme hours. He has spoken about bringing his children to factories and involving them in his work, treating it as educational. He has established a small private school, initially called Ad Astra and later renamed Astronova, based on first principles thinking about education. His relationship with his father, Errol, remains fraught. They have been estranged for much of Elon's adult life. In 2018, it emerged that Errol had fathered a child with his own stepdaughter, a revelation that reportedly disgusted Elon. The complex family dynamics have clearly influenced Elon's psychological makeup, though he rarely discusses these matters in detail. The Twitter persona and public image, Elon Musk's Twitter, now X, presence deserves its own analysis, as it has been central to his public image and has created both opportunities and crises. With over 150 million followers, Elon is one of the most followed people on the platform, and his tweets can move markets, spark controversies, and shape public discourse. His tweeting style is informal, often humorous, sometimes juvenile, and occasionally reckless. He posts memes, engages in arguments with critics, makes bold claims about his company's futures, and shares personal thoughts on everything from artificial intelligence to population decline to cryptocurrency. This direct communication with the public, unfiltered by PR departments, is part of his appeal to supporters who see him as authentic and unpolished. However, this same tweeting has caused significant problems. The funding secured tweet about taking Tesla private led to securities fraud charges. Tweets about COVID-19 in 2020, where he downplayed the virus's severity and opposed lockdowns, were medically questionable and controversial. His political tweets have become increasingly frequent and partisan, alienating portions of his customer base and employee pool. After acquiring Twitter X, his posting frequency increased dramatically, and the content became more political. He has promoted right-wing talking points, questioned mainstream media narratives, and engaged with controversial figures. This has led to accusations that he is using the platform to advance a political agenda rather than serving as a neutral steward of digital discourse. The question of whether Elon's Twitter usage is net positive or negative for his businesses is debated. Tesla shareholders have expressed concern that his controversies damage the brand, particularly among the environmentally conscious consumers who are Tesla's natural customer base. On the other hand, his massive following and ability to generate attention provides free marketing worth potentially billions of dollars. The reality is that Elon's public persona is inseparable from his company's brands, for better and worse. The artificial intelligence contradiction, Elon has been one of the most vocal public figures, warning about the existential risks posed by advanced artificial intelligence. He has argued that AI represents a greater threat to humanity than nuclear weapons, and has called for regulatory oversight before the technology advances beyond our ability to control it. He co-founded OpenAI in 2015 as a non-profit research company intended to develop AI safely and ensure its benefits are widely distributed. However, Elon's relationship with OpenAI soured. He left the board in 2018, citing conflicts of interest with Tesla's AI development and disagreements about the company's direction. OpenAI subsequently shifted from a pure non-profit to a capped profit model and partnered with Microsoft, moves that Elon criticized as departures from the original mission. The development of ChatGPT and subsequent large language models vindicated Elon's predictions about AI advancing rapidly while simultaneously, in his view, demonstrating that OpenAI had abandoned its safety-first principles. In 2023, Elon founded xAI, his own artificial intelligence company, with a stated mission to understand the true nature of the universe. The company released Grok, a large language model designed to be more truthful and less politically correct than competitors. Critics pointed out the apparent contradiction. Elon warns about AI dangers while simultaneously racing to develop powerful AI systems himself. Elon's response has been that because AI development is inevitable, it's better that he be involved to try to steer it in a safer direction, an argument that critics find self-serving, but supporters find logical. The XAI project also revealed tensions with Tesla investors, who questioned whether developing a separate AI company dilutes Tesla's competitive advantage in autonomous driving and robotics. Elon's tendency to launch new ventures that may compete with or distract from his existing companies has been a persistent concern for shareholders and observers. Tesla's transformation and challenges. By 2025, Tesla has transformed from a struggling startup into one of the world's most valuable companies. The company produces multiple vehicle models, operates a growing network of supercharger stations, sells energy storage systems, and maintains a solar energy business. It has factories in California, Nevada, Texas, Germany, and China. It has achieved the scale that skeptics once claimed would be impossible for an electric vehicle startup. The Model 3 became the best-selling electric vehicle globally and demonstrated that EVs could compete with gas cars on price in many markets, especially when considering total ownership costs. The Model Y SUV has been even more successful, becoming one of the best-selling vehicles of any type worldwide. The Cybertruck, Tesla's long-delayed electric pickup, finally began deliveries in 2023, with its radical stainless steel design polarizing opinions but generating enormous attention. Tesla's autonomous driving technology, marketed as full self-driving, FSD, despite not actually being fully autonomous, represents both the company's future ambitions and one of its greatest controversies. Elon has repeatedly predicted that full autonomy is just around the corner, claiming Tesla vehicles will be capable of functioning as autonomous robotaxis. These predictions have been consistently wrong, with true autonomy remaining elusive despite significant improvements in the technology. The FSD naming and marketing has drawn regulatory scrutiny and criticism from safety advocates who argue it creates dangerous overconfidence among drivers. Multiple accidents have been attributed to drivers misunderstanding the system's limitations. Tesla maintains that data shows drivers using autopilot and FSD have fewer accidents than average drivers, though the methodology of these comparisons is contested. Competition in the EV market has intensified dramatically. Traditional automakers like Ford, GM, Volkswagen, and others have launched competitive electric vehicles. Chinese manufacturers, particularly BYD, have become formidable competitors with high-quality, lower-priced vehicles. Tesla's market share in EVs has declined from near-total dominance to being one of several major players. The company's ability to maintain its premium valuation depends largely on whether it can deliver on promises of autonomy, robotaxis, and the humanoid Optimus robot that Musk claims will eventually be more valuable than the car business. Tesla's manufacturing approach has been revolutionary in many ways. The company's use of large casting machines to create single-piece vehicle structures, its vertical integration of component production, and its over-the-air software updates have set new standards for the automotive industry. However, the company has also faced persistent quality control issues, with various models experiencing problems ranging from panel gaps to more serious mechanical issues. Consumer Reports and other organizations have given Tesla mixed reliability ratings, a contrast to the brand's high-tech image. The company's labor practices have also drawn scrutiny. Tesla's factories have been cited for safety violations, and there have been allegations of racial discrimination and harassment at its Fremont plant. The company has fought against unionization efforts, with Elon being openly hostile to unions and labor organizers. In 2021, the National Labor Relations Board found that Tesla violated labor laws and ordered Elon to delete an anti-union tweet. These issues have created tension with progressive consumers who might otherwise be attracted to electric vehicles for environmental reasons. SpaceX's Starlink revolution, one of SpaceX's most ambitious projects, is Starlink, a satellite internet constellation designed to provide high-speed internet access anywhere on Earth. The project involves launching thousands of small satellites into low Earth orbit, creating a mesh network that can beam internet connectivity to ground stations. Starlink began launching satellites in 2019 and opened its service to beta testers in 2020. By 2025, the constellation includes over 5,000 satellites, making SpaceX the operator of the majority of all active satellites orbiting Earth. The service has proven particularly valuable in rural and remote areas where traditional broadband infrastructure is unavailable or prohibitively expensive to build. The service gained significant attention for its use in Ukraine following Russia's 2022 invasion. Starlink terminals provided crucial communications infrastructure when terrestrial systems were destroyed or compromised. The Ukrainian military used Starlink for coordination and intelligence gathering, making it a significant factor in the conflict. However, this military use created diplomatic complexities for SpaceX, and there were controversies when service was reportedly restricted in certain areas at certain times, with disputes about whether these restrictions were due to technical limitations, policy decisions, or geopolitical pressure. Astronomers have raised significant concerns about Starlink's impact on their field. The thousands of satellites, even with efforts to reduce their reflectivity, create streaks in telescope images and increase light pollution in the night sky. The situation represents a classic commons problem. SpaceX's private business interests potentially affecting a shared resource, the night sky, used for scientific research. SpaceX has worked with astronomers to mitigate these effects, but the fundamental tension remains. From a business perspective, Starlink represents a potentially enormous revenue source for SpaceX if successful at scale. The service could generate tens of billions of dollars in annual revenue, providing the funding SpaceX needs for its Mars ambitions without relying on government contracts or outside investors. Some analysts believe Starlink could ultimately be more valuable than SpaceX's launch business. The Mars obsession throughout all of Elon's ventures and controversies, his ultimate goal has remained consistent, making humanity a multiplanetary species by establishing a self-sustaining city on Mars. This isn't a side project or a public relations gimmick. By all accounts, it's the central organizing principle of his professional life. Elon's reasoning for Mars colonization rests on several arguments. First, he believes humanity faces existential risks from various sources: climate change, asteroid impacts, nuclear war, pandemics, artificial intelligence, and that having a backup location for human civilization increases our species' chances of long-term survival. Second, he believes that life must continue expanding and exploring, and that stagnation is itself a form of death for a civilization. Third, he finds the endeavor inspiring and believes humanity needs grand challenges to unite around and work toward. Critics argue that the resources devoted to Mars colonization would be better spent solving problems on Earth, that Mars colonization is centuries away if it's possible at all, and that Elon's timeline predictions have been consistently over-optimistic to the point of being fantasy. They point out that Mars is an extraordinarily hostile environment: no breathable atmosphere, extreme cold, intense radiation, toxic soil, making it far harder to live on than even the most damaged Earth would be. Elon's typical response is that Earth's problems and space exploration aren't mutually exclusive endeavors, and that the technologies developed for space travel, renewable energy, life support systems, resource utilization, have applications on Earth as well. He argues that waiting until Earth's problems are solved before pursuing space exploration is a guarantee that we'll never do it, as there will always be problems. The technical challenges of Mars colonization are immense. Beyond getting there, which Starship is being designed to accomplish, there are questions about how humans can survive radiation exposure during the months-long journey, how to produce food and oxygen on Mars, how to extract water from Martian ice, and how to build structures that can withstand the Martian environment. Elon waves away these concerns, suggesting that engineering solutions will be found once the economic cost of getting to Mars is sufficiently reduced. His timeline for Mars missions has been consistently optimistic and consistently wrong. In various statements over the years, he has predicted crewed Mars landings would occur by 2024, 2026, and other dates that have come and gone. As of 2025, While Starship testing has made significant progress, a crewed Mars mission still appears to be at least several years away, possibly a decade or more. Whether Elon will live to see his Mars city become reality remains an open question. The management style and treatment of employees. Elon Musk's management style is legendary, though whether legendary means admirably intense or abusively demanding depends on who you ask. Former employees describe working environments that are simultaneously exhilarating and exhausting, places where the impossible becomes possible, but at significant personal cost. At the core of Elon's approach is an extreme demand for rapid execution. He sets deadlines that engineers and managers say are impossible, then demands they be met anyway. When told something will take 6 months, he wants it done in 6 weeks. This approach has led to remarkable achievements. SpaceX and Tesla have accomplished things on timelines that traditional companies would never attempt. However, it has also led to burnout, mistakes, and a revolving door of executives. Elon is famous for his surge approach to problems. When a critical issue arises, he will personally insert himself into the details, working around the clock and demanding his teams do the same. Stories abound of Elon sleeping on factory floors, conducting meetings at 1 a.m., and sending emails at all hours expecting immediate responses. During Tesla's production hell period, he reportedly worked 120-hour weeks for months. This intensity creates a culture where employees feel they're part of something historic and important, but where work-life balance is non-existent. Turnover at Musk companies tends to be high, particularly in leadership positions. Some people thrive in this environment, viewing it as the only way to achieve extraordinary things. Others view it as unsustainable and potentially abusive, extracting value from workers' passion and burning them out. Multiple accounts describe Elon as being harsh in meetings, publicly berating employees for what he perceives as inadequate performance or slow progress. He has fired people on the spot for various reasons, sometimes for disagreeing with him, sometimes for failing to meet his expectations. The Twitter takeover featured numerous examples of this, with employees being fired via impersonal emails or by suddenly losing access to company systems. His approach to expertise is unusual. While he relies on engineers and specialists for technical knowledge, he doesn't automatically defer to expertise when it conflicts with his goals. If an expert says something is impossible or will take too long, his default response is to question the assumptions behind that conclusion. Sometimes this leads to breakthroughs when conventional wisdom was wrong. Sometimes it leads to wasted effort on approaches that the experts correctly identified as unworkable. The wealth and controversy. Elon Musk has been the richest person in the world at various times, with his net worth fluctuating dramatically based on Tesla's stock price. At his peak, his net worth exceeded $300 billion, though it has varied by tens of billions of dollars in both directions as Tesla's stock has been volatile. The extreme wealth has made Elon a lightning rod for debates about inequality, taxation, and billionaires' role in society. Progressive politicians and activists have used him as an example of wealth concentration and have criticized his resistance to paying taxes. Elon's response has been combative. He has argued that he pays more taxes than anyone in history, which, in terms of absolute dollars, is true for some years, and he criticizes government spending efficiency. A particular point of contention has been Elon's approach to taxation. Much of his wealth is in stock, not cash, and he has used legal strategies to minimize taxable events. In 2021, ProPublica reported that Elon paid no federal income tax in 2018, a year when his wealth increased substantially. Elon responded that this was because he had no salary and his stock didn't create taxable events until sold. When he exercised stock options in 2021, creating a major taxable event, he paid approximately $11 billion in taxes. The debate reflects broader tensions about how to tax wealth versus income, whether billionaires contribute their fair share to society, and whether society benefits more from letting wealthy individuals deploy capital as they see fit, or from taxing that wealth and having government allocate it. Elon firmly believes the former, arguing that SpaceX and Tesla create more social value than government programs would with equivalent resources. His public persona on wealth issues has not helped his image with critics. He has mocked senators proposing wealth taxes, sold merchandise joking about using tax money, and generally projected an attitude that he finds the criticism unfair and annoying rather than valid. This approach plays well with supporters who see him as refreshingly honest, but alienates those who believe enormous wealth comes with social responsibility. The debate intensified as Elon's political statements became more conservative-aligned. His criticism of California's policies led him to move Tesla's headquarters to Texas, a state with no personal income tax. His attacks on progressive politicians and policies have been interpreted by critics as a wealthy person protecting his interests, while supporters see it as someone willing to speak truth regardless of political correctness. Elon's political evolution, has been one of the most significant aspects of his public life in recent years. He has described himself as historically voting about half Democrat and half Republican, claiming to be socially liberal but fiscally conservative. However, his public political positions have shifted notably rightward, particularly from 2020 onward. Several factors appear to have contributed to this shift. The COVID-19 pandemic and associated lockdowns, which threatened Tesla's production and which Elon vocally opposed, created conflict with Democratic officials in California. He became increasingly critical of what he perceived as excessive government regulation, particularly from California state government. His Twitter controversies and interactions with left-leaning activists and critics seemed to push him toward identifying with those who shared his frustrations with woke culture. By 2022, Elon was openly supporting Republican candidates and criticizing Democratic policies. He encouraged people to vote Republican in the midterm elections, signaling a clear political alignment. His Twitter X acquisition and subsequent changes to content moderation were widely interpreted as favoring conservative voices and viewpoints. His own tweets increasingly echoed conservative talking points on issues ranging from immigration to gender issues to media bias. This political shift has had business implications. Tesla, whose customer base traditionally skewed liberal and environmentally conscious, saw some buyers boycott the brand due to Elon's politics. Studies suggested his political statements were damaging Tesla's brand value. Meanwhile, his conservative-aligned positions didn't seem to be winning substantial new customers from demographics that traditionally resist electric vehicles. The question of whether Elon's political positions reflect genuine beliefs or are strategically motivated is debated. Some argue that his libertarian-leaning views have been consistent, and what's changed is the political environment becoming more polarized. Others suggest his positions shift based on what benefits his business interests fighting regulation that affects Tesla, opposing taxes on the wealthy, and currying favor with politicians who can influence policies affecting his companies. His interactions with various political figures have been complex. He has praised and criticized politicians across the spectrum, though his criticisms increasingly focus on Democrats and progressives, while his praise increasingly goes to Republicans and conservatives. He has met with various world leaders and political figures, leveraging his wealth and influence for what critics call inappropriate political power concentrated in one individual. The vision for humanity's future despite controversies, setbacks, and questionable decisions, Elon's fundamental vision for humanity's future has remained remarkably consistent. He believes we need to solve several critical challenges: transitioning to sustainable energy to address climate change, becoming a multiplanetary species to ensure long-term survival, developing artificial intelligence safely, and merging human intelligence with machine intelligence to avoid obsolescence. His approach to these challenges is characterized by several consistent principles. First, he believes in attacking multiple problems simultaneously rather than focusing on one area. His simultaneous leadership of Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, and other ventures reflects this. Critics argue this dilutes his effectiveness. He argues that the problems are interconnected and must be solved together. Second, he believes in vertically integrated solutions rather than incremental improvements to existing systems. Tesla doesn't just make electric cars, it makes batteries, charging infrastructure, and solar panels. SpaceX doesn't just launch satellites, it makes the rockets, develops reusability, creates the satellite internet service, and plans the Mars colony. This approach requires massive capital and longer timelines, but potentially creates more defensible competitive advantages. Third, he believes in ambitious timelines that force innovation. He knows his estimates are usually optimistic, but argues that shooting for impossible deadlines achieves more than setting comfortable ones. A team trying to accomplish something in 1 year that normally takes 3 might fail, but might also discover new methods that allow completion in 18 months, still faster than the traditional approach. Fourth, he believes in making exciting products that inspire people. The Roadster into space, the Cybertruck's radical design, Neuralink's demonstrations. These aren't just functional decisions, but efforts to capture imagination and show people that the future can be interesting and appealing. His critics argue that this vision is fundamentally driven by ego, by a desire to be the person who saves humanity and remakes civilization in his image. They point to his need for credit and recognition, his difficulty working with others as equals, and his tendency to overstate his personal contributions to collective achievements. They note that many of the world's problems might be better addressed through systemic changes to economic and political structures, rather than through technological fixes developed by for-profit companies controlled by one person. His supporters argue that Elon's ego, while real, is channeled toward genuinely important goals, and that his track record of achievement justifies his confidence. They note that many of the advances he's pursuing, electric vehicles, private spaceflight, satellite internet, were derided as impossible before he proved otherwise. They argue that whether or not his motivation is ego, the results benefit humanity regardless. Relationships with other tech leaders. Elon's relationships with other prominent technology leaders have been complex and often fraught. His rivalry with Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon and Blue Origin, has been particularly visible. The two billionaires are competing in commercial space launch, with SpaceX far ahead in terms of actual orbital launches, but Blue Origin pursuing its own approach to reusable rockets and space tourism. The competition has featured public jabs, with Elon mocking Blue Origin's progress and making jokes about Bezos's space ambitions. He has referred to Bezos as a copycat for pursuing similar ventures. Bezos, typically more reserved publicly, has occasionally responded, and Blue Origin has filed protests against NASA contracts awarded to SpaceX. The rivalry reflects both men's massive egos and their competition for government contracts, customers, and the historical legacy of who advanced space exploration. Elon's relationship with Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, deteriorated after Elon left the company's board. OpenAI's transformation from a non-profit to a capped profit entity, its partnership with Microsoft, and the success of ChatGPT all occurred after Elon's departure. Elon has been critical of the direction OpenAI has taken, suggesting it has abandoned its original principles. His founding of XAI is partly a response to his dissatisfaction with OpenAI's trajectory. With Mark Zuckerberg, Elon has had an increasingly hostile relationship. The two billionaires have disagreed about artificial intelligence, with Zuckerberg being more optimistic about AI development and dismissing Elon's warnings as irresponsible fear-mongering. The disagreement became almost farcical when the two proposed having an actual physical fight, with discussions about a cage match that captured enormous public attention before ultimately not happening. Elon has been critical of Bill Gates, particularly regarding climate change solutions and COVID-19 responses. Gates's approach to climate change emphasizes many solutions beyond electric vehicles, which Elon interprets as not giving Tesla sufficient credit. Their disagreement about pandemic policy, with Gates supporting lockdowns and Elon opposing them, further soured the relationship. There were also reports of tension over Gates holding a short position in Tesla stock, betting that its price would fall. These rivalries and tensions reveal Elon's personality traits, his competitiveness, his need for recognition, his difficulty accepting criticism, and his tendency to view disagreements as personal affronts. They also reflect the reality that a small number of extremely wealthy tech leaders have enormous influence over technological development, creating natural competition and conflict. The impact on industries regardless of personal opinions about Elon Musk, his impact on multiple industries, is undeniable and historically significant. The automotive industry has been fundamentally reshaped by Tesla's success. When Tesla started, electric vehicles were widely considered unviable for mainstream consumers. Today, virtually every major automaker has committed to electrifying their lineup, with many pledging to phase out internal combustion engines entirely. This transformation didn't happen because automakers suddenly discovered electric vehicles were possible. The technology existed for decades. It happened because Tesla proved there was consumer demand for electric vehicles when properly executed, and that a company focusing on EVs could be profitable and valuable. The hundreds of billions of dollars now being invested in EV development by traditional automakers represents a direct response to Tesla's success. The aerospace industry has been similarly disrupted. When SpaceX started, the industry was characterized by cost-plus government contracts, slow development cycles, and an assumption that only nation-states could effectively operate in space. SpaceX's success with reusable rockets, rapid development cycles, and commercial innovation has forced traditional aerospace companies to change their approaches. The United Launch Alliance, a joint venture of Boeing and Lockheed Martin that previously dominated U.S. government launch contracts, has had to develop new rockets and reduce prices to compete with SpaceX. The broader impact extends to how space is conceptualized. The idea that private companies will play the leading role in space exploration and exploitation would have seemed absurd 20 years ago. Today, it's the expected model, with multiple private space companies pursuing various opportunities from tourism to manufacturing to resource extraction. SpaceX's success opened this door. In satellite internet, Starlink has created a new market and demonstrated that low Earth orbit constellations can provide viable broadband service. Traditional satellite internet providers are now competing against this new model, and other companies are attempting to replicate it. Amazon's Project Kuiper is a direct response to Starlink's success. Even in areas where Elon's companies haven't achieved their full visions, they've influenced thinking and investment. The renewed focus on AI safety, even though not everyone agrees with Elon's specific concerns, partly stems from his high-profile warnings. The interest in brain-computer interfaces has increased since Neuralink began demonstrating progress. Tunnel boring technology is receiving more attention and innovation. The cult of personality, Elon Musk, has developed something resembling a cult following, with fans who view him as a visionary genius saving humanity. Online communities of Musk supporters defend him aggressively against criticism, invest their money in his companies, and hang on his every tweet. This phenomenon is both a strength and a weakness for his enterprises. The positive aspect is that this intense loyalty provides free marketing, defends against critics, and creates a passionate customer base. Tesla owners often become brand evangelists, recommending the cars to friends and defending the company against criticism. SpaceX launches attract massive online audiences who celebrate each success. This community support has been valuable during difficult periods, with fans continuing to believe in the vision even when execution falters. The negative aspect is that this devotion can verge on the irrational, with some supporters refusing to acknowledge legitimate criticisms or treating any questioning of Elon as attack on them personally. This creates an environment where Elon is less likely to receive honest feedback, as sycophants surround him while critics are dismissed or attacked. Some observers worry that Elon himself begins to believe his most devoted followers' assessments of his infallibility. The parasocial relationship between Elon and his followers is unusual for a business leader. His social media presence creates an impression of accessibility and authenticity, even though the relationship is fundamentally one-directional. Fans feel they know Elon personally based on his tweets, even though he doesn't know them. This dynamic is more similar to celebrity culture than traditional business leadership. Critics of the Musk cult of personality argue that it's dangerous to vest so much faith and influence in one individual, regardless of their talents. They point to historical examples of charismatic leaders whose followers' devotion prevented necessary criticism and correction. They argue that institutional checks on power exist for good reasons, and that Elon's ability to override normal business processes through force of personality sometimes leads to poor decisions. Supporters counter that Elon's achievements justify the confidence placed in him, and that conventional business wisdom and institutional processes are often barriers to innovation rather than safeguards. They argue that someone needs to push boundaries and take risks that risk-averse institutions won't, and that Elon's willingness to do this is precisely why he's achieved what others haven't. Current status: in 2025, a soft 2025, Elon Musk stands at a complex crossroads. His companies have achieved remarkable things. Tesla is an automotive giant despite the growing competition. SpaceX dominates commercial launch and is progressing toward Mars missions. Starlink provides internet globally, and Neuralink has begun human trials. He has undeniably changed multiple industries and pushed technological boundaries in ways few people ever have. However, significant challenges remain. Tesla faces intensifying competition from traditional automakers and Chinese manufacturers who have closed the technology gap. The promised full self-driving capability that would justify Tesla's premium valuation continues to elude the company. Cybertruck production has been troubled, and questions about future product pipeline persist. SpaceX's Starship, while progressing, still hasn't achieved the rapid reusability that would make Mars missions economically viable. The timeline for crewed Mars missions continues to slip further into the future. Starlink faces competition from Amazon's Project Kuiper and others. The regulatory environment for space activities is becoming more complex as more actors enter the field. X, formerly Twitter, appears to be struggling with declining user engagement and advertising revenue. The platform's value has dropped significantly from what Elon paid for it, and questions about whether it can transform into the everything app he envisions remain unanswered. The acquisition has been a major distraction from his other companies and a financial drain. Elon's personal brand has become increasingly polarizing. His political statements and Twitter behavior have alienated significant portions of the public, potentially including Tesla's traditional customer base. The question of whether his controversial public persona helps or hurts his businesses is debated, with evidence on both sides. His age, he's now in his mid-50s, and the intense pace he's maintained for decades raise questions about sustainability. While he appears to have no intention of slowing down, the reality is that he won't be able to maintain his current pace forever. Succession planning at his companies is unclear, and their dependence on his personal involvement is a potential vulnerability. The legacy question attempting to assess Elon Musk's legacy while he's still active and in his prime is necessarily premature and speculative. However, certain elements of his impact seem likely to endure regardless of what happens next. He will almost certainly be remembered as the person who made electric vehicles viable and desirable, forcing the automotive industry into a transition that might otherwise have taken decades longer. Millions of people will drive electric vehicles who wouldn't have without Tesla's success. The impact on emissions and air quality, while difficult to quantify precisely, is real and significant. He will be remembered as the entrepreneur who made commercial spaceflight routine and demonstrated that private companies can achieve what was once the exclusive domain of governments. Whether or not the Mars colony becomes reality, SpaceX has changed how humanity accesses space, and that change is unlikely to be reversed. If Starlink continues to succeed, he'll be credited with solving the rural broadband problem that governments struggled with for decades. If Neuralink achieves its full vision, he could be remembered for initiating the era of human-machine integration. If full self-driving is achieved, he would get significant credit despite not being the only person working on the problem. However, his legacy is also likely to include controversy. The question of whether his achievements justify his methods, his treatment of employees, his public behavior, and his concentration of wealth and power will be debated by historians. The environmental contradiction making electric cars, while also leading a lifestyle of extraordinary consumption and carbon emissions, will be noted. His role in political polarization, particularly if his rightward shift continues, may overshadow his technological achievements for some people. The Twitter acquisition could be remembered either as a principled defense of free speech or as a vanity project that destroyed value and platform utility, depending on how events unfold. The most fundamental question about his legacy is whether his impact is primarily positive or negative for humanity. Supporters point to accelerated adoption of sustainable technology, advancement in space exploration, and inspiration for future innovators. Critics point to wealth inequality, worker exploitation, technological solutionism that ignores systemic problems, and the dangers of concentrating too much influence in one individual. The reality is likely that Elon Musk's legacy, like most historical figures, will be mixed and complex. He has achieved genuine breakthroughs while also exhibiting significant flaws. He has advanced some important goals while also creating problems. He has inspired many while also alienating many. History's judgment will likely be nuanced, acknowledging both achievements and failures, and recognizing that extraordinary impact, whether positive or negative, is never simple or straightforward. The road ahead looking forward, several scenarios seem possible for Elon's future trajectory. In the optimistic scenario, SpaceX successfully develops Starship, begins regular cargo missions to Mars, and eventually sends humans. Tesla successfully develops full self-driving, deploys robotaxis, and maintains market leadership despite competition. Neuralink helps paralyzed people walk and blind people see, revolutionizing medicine. Elon is remembered as the most important entrepreneur of the early 21st century, the person who set humanity on the path to becoming multiplanetary. In a middle scenario, Elon's companies continue to be successful businesses without achieving their most ambitious goals. Tesla remains a major automaker, but doesn't revolutionize transportation through autonomy. SpaceX continues dominating launch services, but Mars missions remain decades away. Neuralink makes incremental medical progress, but doesn't transform human cognition. Elon is remembered as a very successful entrepreneur who overpromised, but still achieved a great deal. In a pessimistic scenario, one or more of Elon's companies face serious problems. Tesla loses market share as competition intensifies and fails to achieve autonomy, leading to a collapse in its premium valuation. SpaceX faces a catastrophic failure that sets back its programs and damages confidence. The Twitter acquisition proves to be a massive mistake that distracts from other ventures and damages his reputation permanently. Elon is remembered as someone whose reach exceeded his grasp, who achieved early success but couldn't sustain it. The most likely outcome is probably some combination of these scenarios, with successes in some areas and failures in others. Elon has demonstrated remarkable resilience and the ability to achieve difficult things, but he's also shown capacity for poor judgment and self-destructive behavior. His future will likely feature both continued achievements and continued controversies. What seems certain is that Elon Musk will remain one of the most closely watched, widely discussed, and hotly debated figures of our time. Love him or hate him, ignore him is nearly impossible. His influence on technology, business, and public discourse is too significant. The companies he's built, the industries he's disrupted, and the conversations he's sparked will remain relevant regardless of personal opinions about the man himself. Outro, and there you have it. The complete, unfiltered story of Elon Musk from a bullied kid in South Africa to the most influential and controversial entrepreneur of our generation. From nearly losing everything in 2008 to becoming the richest person on Earth, from launching cars into space to implanting chips in human brains, his journey is absolutely unprecedented. So here's the big question. Is Elon Musk a visionary genius who's pushing humanity forward, or is he a reckless billionaire whose ego is out of control? Or is he somehow both? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. I want to hear where you stand on this, and I promise I'll be reading your takes. If you found this deep dive valuable, smash that like button. It genuinely helps the algorithm push this video to more people. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because I've got some incredible stories coming up next. We're talking Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and more visionaries who shaped our world. Thanks for sticking around for this marathon exploration of one of the most fascinating figures of our time. Whether you love him, hate him, or you're somewhere in between, Elon Musk's impact on our future is undeniable. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and keep questioning everything.